Alright, so this is Music and Coffee with Chelsea Beth. I have Kyle Halvorson here. And we're going to be drinking Momo Lolo coffee, one of my favorite coffee shops in town. So Kyle's just got the house blend right now. And yeah, so Kyle, what song are you going to play for us tonight?
Well, Chelsea, I wanted to play a song that's titled Just For You. It's actually the title track off of an album that I had just released that's available right now on iTunes and many other music providers.
That's awesome. So what's the story behind this song? And I mean, you know, if there's kind of a bigger theme in the album too, I'd love to hear about that.
You know, the album is not any sort of concept album, so there is no theme per se. Really, more or less, it's a combination of some of the first songs that I've ever written, kind of thrown together and recorded by myself in my apartment. Really just to kind of showcase versatility of myself as a songwriter, and just to kind of introduce people to my style of songwriting, which, I don't know, I've called it philosophical rock or something like that, but if you don't, okay.
Yeah. Well, I found myself wondering while you were talking about your album, it sounds like you've been writing music for a long time.
I have not, actually.
Really?
I've been playing music for a long time. I've been playing guitar for about 15 years or so. I really started singing about 6 or 7 years ago, and as far as songwriting goes, I've really only done it for about 2 years now.
So what started the songwriting for you?
You know, it was something that I always wanted to do, and it's like, well, how does it happen? You know, do you just kind of like sit around and, but it kind of turns out it's what I've found to be true. It's a healthy balance of kind of making it happen and letting it happen. So never before did I have the kind of persistence that I do now in being able to see how it comes out just through elbow grease alone. You'll get some. You know.
So what is that, when you say elbow grease, like, what does that process look like for you when you're writing?
So basically playing this song until I'm tired of it. Do you mean specifically the writing process?
The writing process, yeah.
Okay. The writing process that I've kind of come to, that has kind of come about organically, is more or less not aimed in any one particular direction. I even have a particular way in which I write on the page to combat writer's block and stuff like that. So I jump around and different stuff like that. And then those will get kind of set aside. And when I have a chord progression and a melody, or sometimes the melody comes first and then I add the chord progression to it, and then that compilation of different things kind of gets put together, and then the song kind of makes itself, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, so like the way you're describing the process, it's like the parts of the whole coming together to create the whole song. So what about the lyrics in particular? What inspires you with regard to the lyric writing?
You know, lyrically, I have to admit, I have a lot of fun with alliteration and really just kind of the poetic feeling of how it leaves my mouth. You know, sometimes just the way in which the syllables match up to the last thing. In the beginning, which again, this was only a couple of years ago when I first started, I have some songs that were very deliberate, and they take place within a specific narrative, if you will. And since I've come along, and since I've gotten more into the letting it happen than making it happen, I really can't say for the most part that these songs that I've been writing lately have had a deliberate intent trying to be drawn out. They kind of more or less happen.
When you say that they more or less happen, do you mean like kind of like free conscious writing, just like sort of when you're writing, is it like stream of consciousness?
I really try to get out of my way. Yeah, it's it's really only until after the song is written that I can look back at it and I say, oh, that had something to do with my life at that point.
What's an example of looking back on a song that you've written and seeing that it was a reflection of your life?
I wrote, so I half knew this while I was writing it. I wrote a song. I told myself I wasn't going to. I wrote a song called "A Girl That's a Princess," but the girl's actually me, and it's not necessarily a princess, so to speak, but it's the idea of following one's dreams, however flight of fancy they may seem.
And how does that apply to you in your life?
With doing things like this is really uncomfortable for me. But it's in doing those uncomfortable things, it's there's a lot of teachings with that kind of axiom of the choice between comfort or growth, and so I've been doing videos of myself in my room, not particularly because I want to, but particularly because I don't want to, because it's uncomfortable and I'm trying to get more comfortable with it in that way.
That's so cool. And I mean, when you kind of reached out with interest in the project, I had no idea that this was something where you're really it sounds like you have a lot of intentionality behind putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
Sure. Yeah.
Have you always been that way, or is this a new thing for you?
No. That was quite the opposite for the majority of my life, and I became more or less enthralled. I think I always had a sort of philosophical mind. Well, I know I always had a sort of philosophical mind. I really became enthralled with a bunch of different things after school. I didn't really understand how much I liked learning about stuff until I was outside of school, and then I just kind of took it upon myself to. You can learn about anything. You can YouTube and learn about anything. So, what I'm getting at is I became more or less a big student of philosophy, theology, and then that will inevitably lead you to self-help and stuff like that. And some people go the other way, but it's in that sort of teaching of the comfort versus, quite simply, when I made the change, I had to. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really cool that you're doing this, and that you, not just today, but songwriting, it sounds like, was part of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's you are certainly familiar with it. Being an artist, it can be emotionally taxing, putting a lot of heart and soul into something and presenting it, and maybe not getting the kind of reaction that you thought you would, or I don't know, but
yeah, you're putting yourself out there, and you don't know how it's going to be received.
Yeah,
and that always feels like a huge risk and scary and super vulnerable.
Sure. Yep. And it's especially when it's like, this is something that I created. It's a little different than. I mean, I really do feel comfortable on stage these days, and get up and play cover songs after cover songs. You get up and you play something that you've created. You kind of put yourself out there, and I think anyone that's not an artist can kind of shake their head yes and understand that that's what's happening, but until you've done it, this is what I found to be true. I didn't know the full extent of it until I started doing it.
Do you feel like now the juice is worth the squeeze?
It continually is. Somebody once said that happiness and unhappiness are sisters that are supposed to grow old together, but all too often remain small. And that's what I feel like it. So it is emotionally turbulent in how I was just describing it. But yeah, when it's down, it's a little bit more down than just the mundane 9-to-5 down. But when it's up, it's a reminder I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all that, and didn't mean to distract too much, but I do want to make sure you get a chance to talk a little bit about the song you're playing today.
Okay. This song really more or less was one of those that it was more wrote itself than I wrote it. I don't know. I really also too had kind of deliberately thought that I'd really rather not tell what a song is supposed to be about. You know, I think any artist can relate to this, to where if you play a song to 100 people and it means 100 different things, you know. I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
You're kind of wanting to give people an opportunity to make their own meaning out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like a painting, you know. The painter doesn't say this is what you're supposed to see.
Well, do you want to tell me the name of your song again?
The name of the song is called Just For You. It's
Just
off
For
of
You.
the album that I had just put out. It's called Just For You. And I actually feel like I need a drink of water before I start.
Sure. We'll take a quick
And then
break
we'll-
and then we'll... Yeah, so this is Just For You by Kyle Halvorson.
Chelsea. Why did I save this painting you made? I must be a slave to the past again. Hold on. Well, what can I say? The very next day, I put it back in its place, and I guess I'm not so strong after all. I made you a bed inside of my head now. Inside of my head, I made you a bed. I cleared out a spot for you. Inside of my heart for you. Inside of my heart, I cleared out a spot there just for you. The songs that are left out on the desk, they won't be addressed until you come save me. A vision foretold of us growing old, but lo and behold, it was only a daydream after all. I made you a bed now, inside of my head now, baby. Inside of my head, I made you a bed. I cleared out a spot for you. Inside of my heart for you. Inside of my heart, I cleared out a spot there just for you. Just for you.
Very sweet lyrics and such a heartfelt song. It's clear, you know, when you're playing, there's like very much a sincerity, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it's just really lovely to see. Kind of feels like it's in line with your mission around songwriting and, you know, what you described earlier. So.
There's just something so timeless and sacred about putting pen to paper.
Totally. Thank you so much for being on Music and Coffee. And if you are looking for Kyle's album, you'll look under John Kyle Halvorson
Correct.
as the artist name.
Yep.
So check it out.
Thank you, Chelsea Beth. Thank you, Cal.
Yeah.
That was
Thanks for being here.
awesome. It's a wrap.
Yep, that's a wrap.